Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Thanks, Kimberly. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you're going to want to make sure that you go to iTunes and that you subscribe, rate, and review this episode so that everybody gets a chance to hear it. Because I'm going to introduce to you today a farm boy. Not just any old farm boy. He's a farm boy from Maine that lives in central Pennsylvania with his wife of 39 years. And he says that she is the joy of his life. He prefers country living to city living because there's nothing like looking out the window and seeing them deer running in a field. He has 3 children and 4 grandchildren. And he says that grandchildren are one of his life's compensations. When he's not enjoying good books in his family, he delivers keynotes, workshops, and coaches leaders, and he writes. And man, he writes a lot. I have Dan Rockwell on the show. That's right, the leadership freak himself. Dan's contribution to the leadership community includes writing the highly recognized Leadership Freak blog. Leadership Freak was the most socially shared leadership blog in the world 3 years in a row. Leaders in every country around the globe gain encouragement and insight from his writing. Over 300,000 subscribers have opted into Dan's social media channels. The American Management Association lists Dan as one of the top 30 leaders in business. Inc. recognizes Dan as one of the top 50 leadership and management experts in the English-speaking world. Inc. also recognizes Dan as a top 100 leadership speaker. Dan Rockwell, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Let's rock and roll.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so I've given our listeners a brief introduction, but can you please tell us what is your current passion so that we can get to know you better?
My current passion is developing coaching cultures in organizations. I believe in servant leadership, and I believe that the logical extension of servant leadership is being a coaching leader, and that means developing organizations that embrace a coaching culture where people understand what it means to be coached and what it means to coach.
You know, it's really interesting that you say that in the context that you say it, because I think oftentimes as a society, we get very confused between the difference of training, counseling, coaching, mentoring. I mean, for you, when you say coaching, can you help us with a little bit more to understand what that means?
I think there are some misconceptions about a coach. I'll tell you a quick story. I coach my wife. And I use this story when I talk to people about how to coach. And as soon as I say I coach my wife, the eyeballs roll, the eyebrows go up. It's like, wow, that must be an interesting kind of experience. And the reason our eyeballs roll and we go, oh, wow, is because we still have this idea that a coach is the person who knows more than I do. And a coach is a person who has all the answers and can tell me what to do. That's not the case at all. Think about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods has a golf coach. That golf coach is not a better golfer than Tiger Woods. So when it comes to coaching, I think about a coach as a person who maximizes the talent and skill of another person, helps them find their strengths, helps them figure out what their path forward is to exceptional performance.
You know, I think there's some really important things for me that resonated when you were talking about that. And one is discovery, you know, being able to discover, interpretation, you know, being able to interpret, encourage, being able to do that and apply, you know, 4 critical components right there when you start talking about coaching as you defined it. What else would you say?
Well, I think it's important in a coaching culture that the people who are being coached understand the process. There's a traditional view of what it means to be a leader. And so now here comes the coaching leader, and the traditional view would be, well, tell me what to do and I'll go do it. And so now if a leader comes in and wants to coach an employee through a process to find their maximum performance, now the person being coached is like, what are you after? Why are you asking me these questions? Why don't you just tell me what you want me to do? And we actually experience this kind of resistance in organizations where we try to help develop the coaching culture because people want to be told what to do. But here's the thing. When you tell someone what to do, you really are enhancing their helplessness and their dependency. So what we want to do when we think about coaching is maximize your strength and focus on your abilities and put responsibility for performance in your lap, not in the leader's lap, not in the coach's lap, in the sense of you're going to make the decisions, you're going to maximize your own performance. I'm the person who is helping you do that.
Oh, it's fantastic advice. Thanks you for sharing. Those insights are so valuable to help us really get better definition of what is coaching and what isn't. Now, Dan, I have to say that, I'm quite intimidated to ask somebody like you my next question, but it's something that's important to us on the Fast Leader Show because inspiration, we all need it. And we look to leadership quotes in order to help us. Some people have passages or things like that, but with I'm sure your volumes of things that you've read, because people who write a lot typically read a lot. Is there something that kind of stands out to you as kind of that reminder that you always hear in your head and it replays, kind of like that song that never gets out, that gives you inspiration and drives you from a leadership perspective? Can you share that with us, please?
Wow, that's a tough question. The first thing that comes to mind, I'm not sure it's a quote anywhere, but it's if you're not going to do anything, or if you're going to talk about it, do something about it. Or say it the other way, don't talk about it if you're not going to do something about it. I just get so frustrated with all these conversations that end up going nowhere. And so that for me is a sort of a guiding principle. I keep that with me a lot. And I'm listening to myself talk and I listen to conversations and I'm asking myself, are we moving toward action and behavior, or are we just chasing our tail?
Oh, I love that quote. And that resonates for me so much, but I have to share with you and be transparent and say that that's actually one of the frustrations that I have, as a husband. And I wonder if there's really a gender difference when it comes to that, because my wife often tells me, look, I don't necessarily want to do anything about it. I just want to tell you about it. And so sometimes for me, I'm like, don't tell me, I don't want to know because I'm going to want to do something about it. Do you see that fall on gender lines, or is it really more of personality traits?
Well, in building a relationship with my wife, I know what you're saying. I think that's, I'm glad you brought it up, because there is this bias to action that if you're not careful, it short circuits just some of the necessary conversation that needs to happen. I would say this, though. I think back to, I've been married for almost 40 years now. I got married when I was 19. And I found that it is, by the way, I hear you. Let's talk through, let's just listen. Let me just listen. And part of coaching, by the way, and coaching my wife, is she says she can tell when I'm trying to fix her and when I'm just listening. So there is some value there. But I think also I love to ask the question, what do you, like say we're having maybe a tense conversation. Love to ask the question toward the end of it, well, what do you want? Let's think about what you want and kind of put that in behavioral terms. So maybe it's, the fixing thing is not so much, she doesn't want me to fix her, but let's work on what the relationship looks like behaviorally. So, but anyway, I hear you. It's a good thing to bring up.
No, I once you brought up that coaching concept piece and that framework and all of that kind of helps me a lot. Is I need to make sure that I'm putting that hat on sometimes and just really listen. Do a better job of active listening.
I'll give you a tip. It comes to me from John Stoker, who wrote Overcoming Fake Conversations. He's a coach, and he taught me that the way to tell whether you're trying to fix or whether you're really just listening and being a coach and helping someone else find their way forward is that sense of tension, anxiety, or frustration you feel in your heart. As soon as that starts to bubble up, you're trying to fix.
Gosh, I feel that often.
I know. So, and I've learned to just kind of, talking about the coaching experience, I've learned to just monitor my own emotion. And as I see it start to heat up, I realize, breathe, let it go. You are not the person to find the answer. They are.
Oh, that's, again, awesome sage advice. So just to let you all know, we go through and we pull out a lot of the different tidbits of information and put them in quotes on our show notes page. And Dan has already dropped so many. I want to make sure that you know that. And you can find those on the show notes page, which will be fastleader.net/Dan Rockwell. Okay, Dan, life, we know, is not always a piece of cake. We often have humps that we have to get over, and there's so much teaching and learning and probably coaching that goes in those moments. Can you think of a time where you've had, that hump to get over and, you found a situation where it kind of defined you or helped you set a new direction? Can you share that story with us?
I think the story of life is that we start off identifying ourselves by others and defining ourselves by others. And there comes a stage in life where you start to move away from that and start to define yourself by yourself and who you really are. And that's a long process. I'm a people pleaser, and so a large part of my life has been spent pleasing people and really identifying myself that way. About 5 years ago, I took a month off, or maybe 6 years now. But anyway, I took a month off, and I remember the day. It was one of those midlife crisis moments, and I've had many midlife crises. I'm a huge fan of them. We all had to have lots of them, and it was then that some things came clear. I just said to myself, you have more in you, and I realized I was defining myself by others, and it was in that moment that I said, you know what? I don't need any of this. I don't need any job that I have. I don't need any of it. It doesn't mean that you turn mean and nasty. What it means is you turn to your strength, you turn to your talent, you turn to your gift, and you begin to bring that authentically versus doing it to get approval and pleasing people. And I still love to please people, and so do you, and it's a good thing. But needing it is not quite so healthy.
So can you tell us about the situation as it occurred? I mean, what happened?
I think our lives kind of drop into 10-year segments. And so I think it's more of a timing thing than a specific situation. For example, when you go off to college, you're 18, 19, 20, you're going to have a crisis, an identity crisis. And then, somewhere around, the 30s, probably got married. And so there's going to be some of that. And then the kids come, and research is showing that you're really almost on the decade markers. And for me, it started, just before the 50s or just around the 50s. And it was about a 2 or 3 year period of frustration. And finally, boom, it just came clear for me, and then things changed.
So what did you do differently?
Well, first of all, there's an attitudinal difference, and that's the biggest thing. Is you still love people and you still want to serve people, but you don't do it to just gain their approval. And so there's great freedom. There's great freedom. And I think there's freedom to serve, and there's freedom to speak your own heart and mind kindly. So when you disagree, for example, when you're a deep people pleaser, it's hard to disagree. So you kind of stuff down some of the things you really think. So for me, one of the changes is to kindly speak, have candor. And I just talked to Jack Welch last week, and he said his mom taught him to be authentic early on. And he's known for candor. And I said, tell me, is this the foundation for candor? And he said, absolutely. Just knowing who you are and sticking with that allows you to be candid. So anyway, one of the things that changed for me is freedom and kindness and candor that comes out. And then I started writing Leadership Freak, and I tie that to that experience as well. So I started writing Leadership Freak, and then the rest is history.
So that refocus and rededication, I would, when you start talking about the writing of Leadership Freak and really the proliferation of it, it's just amazing to me how much volume and variability in that content that you actually can generate. I mean, with that change, did there also come a different sense of discipline, focus, habit, that you can actually kind of allude to being more concrete and structured than, hey, I just did something different?
Yeah, well, I'm a farm boy from Maine. And so I know what it means to get up and work hard, and I would get up before school and work has been part of my life all along. So I get up very early to write the Leadership Freak blog, and that's a little bit of my nature. But I think the thing that's driving this proliferation, as you put it, is a need to matter. And in those years, in those darker years, part of that is I felt like I could matter more, and I was disappointed in how far I had come. And so the drive, what you see now, is a drive to matter. And a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I'm just going to say it to you. People ask me, why are you writing so much? And first of all, I made lots of mistakes, and I got lots to write about because I made lots of mistakes. But I want to matter, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put it to you in the negative language as well. I'm afraid I won't. And there is in my own life some of this fear that I won't matter. That also sometimes when I think, you know what, why don't you just sleep in today? And there's that voice that says, you know what, you better get down there. It's not the noblest thing in the world, but that's part of the story.
But it is the human story. And that's one of the things that we try to go for and really pull out here on the Fast Leader Show. For the longest time, and you and I had talked about this, is that, leadership and leading has kind of been, I think, almost hijacked. And it was hijacked by folks that said that this is only for the elite. This is only for the high potential folks. This is only for the people who are above this point, within an organization or in this age group. And I call hogwash on that. We all have the opportunity to lead, if at least it's ourselves. And there's no way we can ever have followers if we don't do a good job of that. And I think you shared through your story a lot about that self-leadership component, which has allowed you to impact so many leaders of others. Dan, I thank you for sharing that and really appreciate it. I know that all of the Fast Leader Legion, wishes you the best. But we want to know, what are your goals for the future?
Well, in the short term, my word for this year is extend. I practiced a word for the year. There's a book called One Word, and I don't really like the New Year's resolution thing, but I do practice one word. And this year, my word is extend. I want to extend my service to others. I want to extend my speaking engagements. I want to extend. So I'm becoming a little more cognizant of that type of thing. In the long haul, I really enjoy coaching, and that's important to me. And I just look forward to opportunities to serve people. That's what extend means to me. How can I find new ways to serve people?
So based off of everything that you've shared with us so far and, extending and all of that, what is one piece of advice you would give to our listeners?
Stay curious, open your heart. I think leaders can be quick to make decisions. And once we make a decision, curiosity ends. And then we start defending that decision. And I just I would encourage leaders, especially young leaders, to be curious. And what that means is to bring outsiders in, to seek other perspectives and be a learner.
So when you start talking about part of the future and the giving back, there's also a business side to it. So what is one thing that really excites you about the work that you're doing today? I mean, you mentioned the coaching. What else?
The opportunity to do Keynote work for an organization is a wonderful opportunity, and it's a good business opportunity as well, because you get to learn about what they're doing. And a Keynote obviously is not going to radically change an organization, but a Keynote presentation, you get to align with where that organization is going and speak into it and kind of fuel that fire. So I do enjoy the Keynote opportunities.
That's fantastic. Well, the entire Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. All right, here we go, Fast Leader listeners. It's time for the rapid part of our show, and that's the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Dan, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are gonna help us move onward and upward faster. Dan Rockwell, are you ready to hoe down?
I'm ready to hoe down.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Insecurity, the fear of failure, and just the need to succeed.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
If we do it your way, we'll end up with nobody. And there, it can be hard on people. And so I had a friend of mine look me in the eye and say, you know what? You got to stop cutting people out.
I love that. What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Being a learner. The idea is you got to pour more into yourself than you pour out. So keep pouring into yourself, and then you'll have plenty to pour out.
What do you feel is one of your best resources that helps you lead in business or life?
Listening to others.
What would be one book you would recommend to our listeners? And I know that's tough, but give it a shot.
The Leadership Challenge by Kouzes and Posner.
Thank you very much. All right, Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to that information as well as to the Leadership Freak blog if you haven't subscribed already, and other bonus information by going to fastleader.net/Dan Rockwell. Okay, Dan, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you woke up tomorrow morning and you were 25 years old again, but you've been blessed. You have all of the knowledge and wisdom, and you get to take it with you. Now, your job is to manage a team that is underperforming and disengaged. Now, you get up in the morning, you go to work. What do you do now?
I realized that success doesn't depend on me. It depends on them, that my performance is really about their performance. When I was young, I thought it was all about me. And now I realize it's all about them.
Age does have something to do with that, but we're hoping at the Fast Leader Show that our younger listeners can hear that sooner and it'll click for them sooner. And that's really what the Fast Leader Show is about. It isn't about doing things quickly. It's about doing things right. Dan Rockwell, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader listeners how that they can connect with you?
Well, if you go to Google and type in Leadership Freak, you can't miss me. And if you'd like to send an email, you can write you can email dan@leadershipfreak.com.
Dan Rockwell, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.